Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining me today for the Fitchburg Fire Department is our friend Mark Malekish. He's back talking everything from cold safety, heating, cold, carbon monoxide, Christmas trees, Thanksgiving safety, the whole gamma.
It's a big time of the year.
It's like the time of year.
It is. Actually, statistically, most house fires or residential fires start during the winter months of the year.
You know, I remember this from our conversation when we did all those topics during Fire Prevention Week, thinking that this is the time of year. Well, we'll start with carbon monoxide safety. I don't know about you, but we had to kick the heat on at the house already because we did. And it's a good time to be talking about carbon monoxide. We just had daylight savings not too long ago, too. So it's a good time to check your alarms, make sure that they're working and ready to go. So as you look at carbon monoxide poisoning or just talking about carbon monoxide, why do we look at this time of year as kind of a kicking point to start off? Although we should practice safety all year round.
Yeah, all year round should be. And to back up just a step, carbon monoxide is colorless and odorless. So you really have no idea that it's there. It's produced by combustion. It's a byproduct of basically fire. So any of our natural gas or fuel-fired appliances, whether it's a water heater, a furnace, an oven or stove, even a fireplace, we want to make sure that those are working efficiently and working the way that they're supposed to, so that carbon monoxide doesn't eke out into the space that we are, that it ventilates properly, and probably more importantly, that you have a detector with you.
So if you don't have that in place, you need to get one first and foremost. Like that is a must. But what would be some signs that a poisoning is going on? So you're not, let's just say you don't have that alarm in there, it's not working or whatever. What could be a sign that you've got an issue going on?
Yeah, so first and foremost, nausea, vomiting, headache. You just don't really feel well. And that's where the detector comes in. During the day, we can say, understand why I don't feel good. Let's look into this. But at nighttime when you're sleeping, you might not realize that. But it starts off with the early stages. And then, if the carbon monoxide poisoning continues, then it gets worse. It can go to vomiting, it can go to mental confusion, it can go to ultimately death if you're not careful.
I've heard of people not being able to move. Like they're conscious, alert, everything, but they're not able to move, literally.
Yep. And I have just as a sidebar, I have a suspicion about most of the fire deaths that occur because carbon monoxide is a byproduct of combustion. When there's a fire, I don't have any scientific proof to back this up, but I do believe that people get confused, and that's what prevents some of them from not making out of, the space that they're in when a house is on fire.
Yeah, you don't really think of the carbon monoxide as a byproduct of this fuel that is doing something, and those actions are causing this to happen, and so you're in trouble. Final questions on carbon monoxide. Overall, where would you want to put the monitors or your detectors at?
So on each level of the house, let's say you have a 2-story home with a basement. At each level in one of the common areas is where you should have that detector. Common area can be a hallway, it can be a living room, it can be any place like that. I would recommend that it go specifically closer to the sleeping areas. That way, you might hear it at night if it happens to go off.
And test these. I mean, really, no kidding aside, the whole family needs to know what this sound is. They need to know whether it's fine. I know there's a lot of combo together ones, but everybody in the family needs to know what that sounds like.
Yeah, and just like smoke alarms, when you hear the alarm, understand what the alarm is first and foremost. With most carbon monoxide detectors, it's 4 consecutive beeps followed by a rest and then 4 consecutive beeps. When they hear that, the best thing that they can do is get out of doors. Get out of the house, get out of the apartment, get out of the space that you're in to fresh air. That's going to be the remedy, and that's going to be the best thing to do first. But then call 911, have us come check it out. And we may decide to have the gas company come in and do additional checking. But call first and get outside.
Another thing, just going back to the illness, I've heard this long time ago, ran on an ambulance. So I remember this from one of the trainings, but if the whole family is feeling these effects, so when we went back to saying, nausea, vomiting, but if the whole family all of a sudden has all these similar, everybody's feeling it, that's a pretty good indicator. I mean, could be food poisoning, could be the flu, but circumstantially.
Yeah. So I do that with my family. When I hear one or more of us say, man, I got a headache. I don't know where that headache's coming from. The first thing I do is I go and sort of check my detectors and see if I'm a geek that way. I get it, but
I'm the same way. You got practice. Two of us that are doing that, thinking the same way. So that's good. And ahead of Thanksgiving, cooking fires, kind of probably hit their peak, just fires in general. But as we get to the cooking season, there used to be that trend of let's deep fry a turkey. Here we go.
Right. Well, let's be honest. It tastes amazing. Right.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
But if you're going to use a deep fryer, you have to understand a couple of things about it. First of all, don't do it on your wooden deck or just outside the structure. Right. Move it away from the building just a little bit. Second of all, make sure that you haven't overfilled the oil. Right, because that pushes oil out, and you're heating that oil up with an open flame, usually an LP tank. And last but not least, make sure that your turkey is not frozen and it's dry. Pat it dry inside and out, because water and hot oil really don't mix. And as you ease that turkey into the oil, don't drop it, but ease it into the oil. If it's wet or if it's frozen, it'll start to bubble and hiss, and it'll throw oil all over the place. And hot oil is really what's happening with the fires. So be very careful. I mean, they can be used, but please be careful.
And then just in general, when it comes to cooking, you're going to be in the kitchen more, potentially doing cooking, but we're multitaskers at best now, and that's probably where that trouble can start.
Yeah. So I probably say this every time I come on and talk to you. Stay with what you're cooking. Stay in the kitchen.
You sure you haven't changed your mind on that?
I'm so set on that. It's not even funny.
Oh, boy.
Stay with what you're cooking. Stay in the kitchen.
You really do, because there are so many different things going on. And if something bubbles over or something catches a fire, if you're not there to see it, yeesh.
Yep. And fires are insidious that way. They'll sneak up on you, and before you know it, things have gotten bad very quickly. But if you stay with your cooking, you're right there to see when things start to maybe go sideways or bubble over or whatever the case may be, and you can manage it, hopefully, before it gets out of hand.
And then as far as maybe being a little, you should always be on your guard for potential fire, but maybe since you're amping it up, it was the last time you checked that your fire extinguisher is working. The last time you checked that you have baking soda on hand.
Yep.
Like, do you make those things readily available, or do you suggest to people, like, 'tis the season, you could say you should probably have those out?
Yeah, have them ready. We've talked about it as many times as I've been on, right? Most fires, statistically, both nationwide and Wisconsin, they start in the kitchen. So where do you want that fire extinguisher? In the kitchen. Right, it's better to spray the fire extinguisher and maybe ruin what you were cooking than to have just an easy, preventable mishap happen, and then all of a sudden you've got a kitchen fire on your hands that could spread.
And finally, if a fire does occur, you guys are a phone call away. Like I feel like don't hesitate. I would not even consider the fact of. Should I or shouldn't I? Don't screw around either in that moment. Like, it's easy for me to stand here and say, well, why didn't you use your fire extinguisher? Why didn't you use the baking soda? Why'd you put water on a grease?
I hear it all the time. We didn't want to bother you guys. Okay, well, first and foremost, it's not a bother to us. It's what we're here to do, right? Is to come check it out for you. And if something bad didn't happen, no harm, no foul, we'll go about our way. But if you call early, at the first sign of things not being quite right, we'll get there fast. The earlier you call, the faster we get there, and we'll be able to check it out. And if it's nothing, then we'll leave, and everybody will go about their day. No problem, right? But if we get there and there is something, we're we have a very fast response, and we can be ahead of that fire or problem getting even bigger, whether it's carbon monoxide poisoning or a fire.
Yeah, no, I don't second guess here. I mean, our staff are second to none here at Fitchburg, first off, but more importantly, they want you to be safe as much as you want your family and you to be safe. So, don't hesitate to definitely make that call. Finally, and we'll spend more time coming up talking about the holidays and whatnot, but just for tree safety, if somebody is heading out to get the perfect tree, whether it's Griswold tree down to Charlie Brown, you got to water that thing.
Yep. Make sure that it's watered. It's a proven fact that trees that don't receive regular watering will catch fire way faster than a tree that's been watered regularly. It's such a simple thing. Just a little bit of water a day makes a huge difference. But what you're doing is you're keeping those pine needles moist, the wood moist, and not allowing it to dry out. And that dry Christmas tree dried out will start very, very quickly.
And keeping it away from heat sources as well. So I'll tell you, the most picturesque photos that I always look at, like, there's the tree, there's the fireplace, right. There's the problem.
Right. Open flames are not generally. Open flames and Christmas trees are a bad idea. I do understand it's Christmas and some people use candles as part of their holiday celebration. With those candles, just make sure that they're not in proximity of the tree. It's that simple.
And what about heating vents too? I've always thought this personal problem of mine, and you can help solve this by just don't put the tree by the heater. But we have a register that's right there, right where the perfect spot is. And every year I cover it up with as much duct tape and everything else so that heat doesn't heat up the tree and dry it.
So that's one thing. But the big danger is just what you said, it drying out the tree even faster. So if you've got a furnace or forced air furnace, some sort of a vent that's blowing air on the tree constantly, it's going to take even more watering to make sure that tree stays moist. Yeah. In the absence of that, it does run a risk of drying out more quickly.
All right, Mark, people want to learn more about fire prevention. I actually just found this on your website. I was doing some research for some safety stories that we're working on, and I was reminded of just how many resources are on the website, including Thanksgiving prevention, carbon monoxide, on the holiday safety tips. They're all out there, but more important, they can reach out to you guys and ask any questions, like the question I just asked. Yeah. Should the tree be close to the register? Try again.
No, we will absolutely. Any one of our staff, specifically and including me, are more than happy to answer those questions so that you don't have a problem in your home, right? There is no such thing as a dumb question. There is no such thing as an embarrassing question. We're not going to talk about it later on. We're simply going to try and direct you and show you or explain to you the best way to do something.
It's better to understand, ask questions, and be educated on whatever the subject matter is. And you guys are the subject matter experts, so it's nice to sit down and have those conversations. And I love picking your brain. And hopefully people do on these segments because they go long because of that. But either way, Mark, thank you so much for your time. Happy holidays to you if I don't see you soon, and stay safe out there.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you for having me.